the port is undertaking. So we're going to go through tonight. I want to really start with the emphasis point, which is not me talking, not the project team talking, but the project team really listening. So we're going to do a few introductions to start. I'm going to give an opportunity for our commission president, Commissioner Joe Downing, to say a couple of things, and then my executive director, Sam Gibney, and then we're going to dive into the slides. I want to also kind of preempt that these slides are the very first cut. So nothing is set in stone. And our hope tonight, after we do the presentation, is to really take in from the community what you want to see in this area. This is our waterfront. You know, I've been a resident of Olympia for 25 years. There is so much potential for this place right down the street from the Hands-On Children's Museum and the Farmers Market. And we at the Port really want to do our best to create a space that the community is also excited about. So with that, I'm going to pass the mic to Commissioner Joe Downing.
Well, thank you, Rachel, and thank you for putting this together. I see Ron Thomas and the task team on here. This will be my second run through with this, and I want to thank the public for being attentive to what we're thinking about. And as Rachel said, you know, this is about feedback from the public. So, you know, there are a lot of things here, and feel free to ask questions. You know, I'll turn it back over, of course, to Rachel to guide the meeting. And this is probably going to be the last thing I say tonight because of the Public Meetings Act. And we've got, I see 2 commissioners on here, but we can't have a quasi-public meeting if we're both interacting. So I think we're here to listen and observe. And thank you for being here tonight. And
thank you, Commissioner. Well, and I want to also then give the mic to my boss, Sam Gibney, who has been a champion of getting this rolling. And so, Sam, if you would like to say a couple of things.
Really don't want to take up any time, and just want to again thank everyone for joining us this evening, and really looking forward to hearing what people are thinking about the future of the peninsula.
Thank you, boss. So I will start by saying that the Port received a $50,000 grant from CURB out of Department of Commerce that is funding the planning portions of this effort. One of our first tasks was to identify a consulting firm that could help us with this planning and that could crystallize all of the input that's gotten from now through February of the coming year into a really solid vision that the community can get behind. So I'm going to pass to Ron Thomas to talk about the project team, and then I'll go back and do a few more of the more detailed slides.
Thank you, Rachel, and good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I've been doing these public meetings for just short of 45 years, and I'm always pleased if at least one person shows up. And so thank you all for giving us a part of your evening, and want to reinforce what Rachel described as this is a framework to elicit public comment. It is not a presentation of something. It's actually a framework just to help spur on your creative juices. And we've had the good fortune at Thomas Architecture Studios to work on waterfront projects from New England to the Pacific Northwest. So we were delighted when the Port invited us to join them. And we've added to our team here some outstanding firms from the Pacific Northwest, Makers Architecture. Many of you will remember them from the recent Olympia planning efforts. They're going to help us in consistency and linkages to downtown. SiteWorks, again, another firm that has worked on a lot of waterfront projects. They're our landscape architect. Local firm, SCJ Alliance, our civil engineers, we're delighted to have them. And Mott McDonald is a specialist in in-water cleanup, shoreline restorations, this type of thing, highly respected, and they've done a lot of work here in the Olympia area. So glad to have them. And I can't forget, the most important person at Thomas Architecture Studios this evening is Amos Callender. He's been working very hard over the last few months and preparing a lot of these documents to see before you. So I'm very blessed to have a very talented staff, and Amos is leading up the charge on this one. So back to you, Rachel.
Thank you, Ron. And I want to reiterate, Amos, how responsive you've been to sort of a landslide of information that we've shared. So what I'm going to do is go through a little bit of the foundational work that's already occurred that is informing some of the work that we're doing. We want to make sure that each effort that the port undertakes is building on the next, and that they're harmonic and consistent with one another. A little bit first about the schedule here. So we're on a fairly fast track because we've done so much work with Vision 2050, which I'll get to. But as you can see, we've convened an advisory board. We're also doing meetings with select stakeholders, and then we're doing public outreach. And all of those dates are in front of you, and the timeline is here as well. I want to also point members of the public to our website. So if you go to portolympia.com and search Destination Waterfront, everything, all of the dates, all of the presentations are there for you, recognizing that some folks need to kind of digest information. So tonight we're going to ask for some input, but don't feel limited just by tonight. If you have an aha moment in the middle of the night, you're welcome to email me your ideas, because we really do want to take in as much as we possibly can right now. But in front of you is the schedule of the process that we're in the midst of. We also are very committed, as we're hopefully articulating, to public involvement, particularly IAP2. And so we want to be very transparent from the outset where we hope to involve the public in this. With IAP2, there are several levels of collaboration. We see this project as involving and collaborating with the community. We're not at empowerment, as ultimately the Port Commission has authority with budget choices and with lease agreements that they approve to actually move projects forward. But what we want is to provide them with robust input from the community through involving and collaboration in this process, so that they can make decisions that are considerate of that. The area that we are looking at is the area highlighted in red. So it's really that East Bay waterfront with a couple of sites inland. I think you can see my cursor. So that site as well. And then we have a little dock and some overwater area over there. But primarily we're looking at that waterfront area. So to start kind of thinking about what's already there and what do I as a resident of Olympia want to see there in the future. So we've done quite a bit of planning recently, particularly the Vision 2050 plan. And I want to give a kudos to Jenny Folia Jones, who is on the phone, who did a stupendous job of leading that effort for the organization. This effort, the Destination Waterfront, is our response to some of the outcomes of Vision 2050. It's our way of saying, we heard you and we're doing it. And what you asked of us was to essentially move forward, and I'll get to more detail, but move forward with some waterfront access and development. So there were 3 focus areas in Vision 2050. Those are in front of you. There was the marine terminal, waterfront, and community assets, business development, infrastructure and real estate, and sustainability, administration, communications, and engagement. So all recommendations that came out of the Vision 2050 process fell into one of those 3 categories. So in the focus area of marine terminal, waterfront, and community assets, what we heard from the community was to make the physical layout more welcoming around the marine terminal, to add amenities and access to water along the peninsula, to enhance connection between Swantown and the core downtown area, and to add more amenities similar to the Port Plaza and the Market District. And I will say that the Market District, which I think everybody here enjoys. I know I am at the farmers market, particularly outside of COVID times, multiple times a week. The Market District was an outcome of a process very similar to this. So if folks can remember way back before that, our farmers market existed, it was kind of a get together. There was a parking lot type farmers market. This process led to what we now know is really kind of a central hub for our community. So I want us to, I'm saying that so that we don't limit ourselves in our dreaming together here tonight. So another focus area was business development, infrastructure, and real estate to leverage the port's unique statutory authority to catalyze economic opportunities, create business and economic development plan, to create a plan with defined priorities, support and invest in regional economic development activities, and to create and support small and emerging businesses. So we've already heard from some artists and other businesses in the community. We want to really continue because that was what the community said. How can this project support those folks? So then as part of the Vision 2050, also priorities were given to different actions. And this really kind of was one of the highest. Work with the city of Olympia to create a more welcoming environment downtown. And so that's really our hope here, is that at the end of the day, what we bring forward as staff to the commission are ideas that are going to create that cohesion from the downtown core all along the water, creating economic opportunities and beautifying our already pretty beautiful downtown, in my humble opinion. So now we're going to get to a few ideas that have been contemplated already. While they are ideas that have been contemplated, I want to affirm again that not anything is set in stone. So we're tossing this out as essentially a straw dog to invite your imagination to say, what about, what if, those what if questions are what I'm eager to get to tonight. So the port currently leases a building in downtown. What we're wanting is to build, and what the commission has approved is funding to look at where we might build our own office space downtown along in this study area. So that is on the table. We have some preliminary drawings. Again, these are just to kind of food for thought. Some sketches that have been drawn, what it could look like, what it might look like. Maybe it's mixed use. We're really open to ideas. We've contemplated an RV resort. The one on the slide in front of you is not the RV resort we are contemplating. Again, we don't want to presuppose anything by putting too many detailed plans in front of you. We want to take in, but we have contemplated, from the standpoint of recreation and waterfront recreation, an RV resort could be a nice compatible use to the marina. So the commission has also already approved some funding to move that project forward. Public parking, boat trailer parking, dry boat storage will have to be a part of the overall vision. We have requirements for parking as buildings are constructed. We also are needing more dry boat storage for the marina and boatworks. And here again, we have in the parking lot, I don't know who was able to attend the drive-in movies, but as we see COVID continue to kind of march on, my hope is that we will have more drive-in movies for the community as a socially distant and safe activity. But to just kind of think about, we do need parking to be an element of this vision. Some other potential uses we thought of are boutique hotels or hotels that have event space, collaborating with the Squaxin and with the marina or the marine heritage group on perhaps museums, building that connective tissue with the Children's Museum. Another idea that's been kind of tossed around. So public-private development sites, some potential development sites, and I'm going to actually hand this section over to Amos, and then I'll pick up at the next section.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. So yeah, public development sites or potential development sites, potential use for mixed use, so residential over commercial. There are some potential concerns with residential in the area, but we definitely want to hear your feedback on some of that. Parking, restaurants, retail, kayak rental, maybe that provides you with access to the water, some of the things that we heard in the 2050 vision. And then, as Rachel mentioned, even event venue space. So a couple of potential development sites. You'll see to the left of the screen the potential of that spot behind the Hands-On Museum. The Children's Museum does look like they want to expand to the north. They've had plans for that, but this is a site that we want to look into as far as what could go there. And then same thing for that fan shape you see on the right. that is another potential site. Lot also has a desire to expand, but again, we want to see what options there are for that location. One other potential development site just to the west of Boatworks is that large gravel lot that's open currently, and looking for options for that as well. I think there's one more slide from the other direction. You can see the farmer's market in the back there off to the top right. Another potential is over water sites. You see KGY in the top left. Their lease is due to expire soon. So there's some potential that we could, if they choose to vacate, take over that location and build an overwater development. And then you also see on the right, top right, another kind of abandoned pier that's there. And there's some other overwater potential for that space as well.
So now we're going to move into a few other considerations, points of pride for the port, as well as, and thank you, Amos, as well as other considerations that will be germane to us, perhaps not tomorrow, but long-term, that the port would like to see incorporated into the thinking around what goes on here. So as some will recall, we recently dedicated the trail that goes from essentially North Point all the way up to the Moxley Creek outfall as the Billy Frank Jr. Trail and Park. This is, I think I speak for everyone, a source of great pride and a community asset that many, many of us enjoy. We're in the process of finalizing signage to really pay tribute to the Squaxin and to Billy Frank's legacy. We want to also, maintain parks and amenities, as we've already talked about, wildlife viewing, recreation. We have our fuel dock recently installed that's doing well and is a draw for boaters from all over the region. Hands-on Children's Museum. I remember seeing data on where the Children's Museum pulls their audience, and it's extensive. So we have an audience that's eager and ready to play downtown with us. So to keep in mind parks and amenities. And finally, sea level rise. The port did quite a bit of work with the city of Olympia and Lot over the last several years, concluding in March of 2019. This commission recognizes the critical importance and impact that climate change is going to play in all of our lives in the future, and has invested in ensuring that our planning efforts take into account sea level rise, as we have some vulnerabilities. I do want to point out, we're going to dive deeper into some of the sea level rise work at later public meetings. So what we're doing tonight is just setting a stage again. So don't feel like we're not going to come back to this. This will be central. Part of the plan was it provided examples of solutions that we could incorporate, from living shorelines to raised streets to raised landscaping and flood walls. As we think about what do we want to see in this area, we need to also think about how are we going to protect what we're building from future sea level rise. My hope, and I know it's shared with other port staff, is that this becomes really a case study of what sea level rise adapted development can look like. Really an opportunity for the community to shine. So here are a couple other examples straight from the Sea Level Rise Plan, which is housed on the City of Olympia's website. Raising the Billy Frank Jr. Trail is one way, along with a living shoreline. So just kind of giving some perspectives of what could happen and how we are inviting you to think with us. A few more sea level rise measures, and we're putting these up again for aesthetic. So if we hear from the community, we want a concrete wall, well, that's definitely an aesthetic perspective. Or we want organic and we want living shoreline and we want, that's also a very valid perspective. So just kind of throwing some photos out as inspiration to your thinking. Here are a few more different ways that shorelines can be adapted to a rising sea level, as we ask ourselves, what do we want our community to look like and feel like? And then we get into the last section, which is the development plan, and I'm going to pass it over again to Amos for this section, and then we want to hear from you.
All right, so this overall development plan, we're going to work kind of from the point over there at Hearthfire and then work our way around to the south end of East Bay. So you see on the bottom left, Hearthfire Restaurant, that is existing, is going to remain. We're not really touching that area. Let's go on to the next slide. And then you see the two overwater sites, the KGY, and then that site we talked about just to the west of Hearthfire. And as you wrap around this site here, you can see that as a potential hotel site. But again, that's potential. You want to get your feedback for what could go there. And then the Cascade Pole site, that is kind of a contaminated area. It is a contaminated zone that's been capped. You see that line in purple, that's actually a slurry wall. So that's the extent of that area. Not that we can't develop on that, it's just a few extra measures that need to be in place to do that. And further to the right, you're going to see the boat launch and the marina parking in that area. You also have the Oar boathouse in that location. Those are pretty well established, so I think those are going to have to stay. And then this large area, future site development, that is potential for the admin building for the port, with some other potential features there as well. And then further to the right, we have the RV resort that we're looking at that location. And then moving up and to the right, we have the Boatworks, Swantown Boatworks, which is existing, planning to remain, and then potential for a dry boat storage just to the kind of southwest of that. And then this vegetated area you see on the top right, not a lot of room for development there, but definitely room for improvement or kind of talk about living shoreline areas. So that might be something we want to consider right there along the Billy Frank Jr. Trail. And this, that green line across the top, you see that is the Billy Frank Jr. Trail that ends in the park to the left. And there's a few other public open space park-like areas. The Percival Landing on the bottom of the screen there, right there to the west of Farmers Market as well. Then you see up there by the Hands-On Children's Museum to the top right. That's a city park with a man-made stream there. And then further to the right, you see that sliver of green. That is actually a boardwalk that is part of a Westman Mill development site, which I think we actually show further on, so we'll get into that. This slide is showing public access to water. I'll kind of start at the top right with the East Bay redevelopment site. To the left is the dock right behind Boatworks. Further to the left, potential public docks there. So we're looking at potentially adding more access to the water. And then the boat launch to the top left. You scroll down a little bit more, there's a few other sites out in front of Hearthfire and then also at the farmers market. So a few areas for public to gain access to the water. This slide is explaining or going over the gateways and connections. So we're looking at how can we get people to connect back to downtown Olympia. So the thought is adding these gateways in a very rhythmic location. So as you're going down Marine Drive or along the Billy Frank Jr. Park, there are these gateways that would bring you back to the downtown area and connect you back to like the farmer's market. And you can see in purple, maybe those are more of a transit or some sort of major connector that would connect you back to the downtown proper, to the transit center or down to the farmer's market area. I added this just as part of that gateway connector. This is just a map explaining distances from that particular kind of waterfront development area. You can see the quarter mile, half mile, 3/4, and 1 mile. So at a quarter mile, it's maybe a 3 to 5 minute walk. And then there's a potential that it could be up to about a 20-minute walk if you wanted to visit, say, the Capitol building from this area. So it kind of shows that there's ability to connect to downtown. Here's another example of a gateway or connector. This is the Tug Parthia. It's being restored currently, and our office actually helped design the canopy, the cover for that. And this potential location is just to the east of the farmers market. So that would help draw people and connect them back to the downtown area. And then this slide showing some potential development sites. So we have in the light blue teal, those are what we would consider waterfront development sites that directly access to the water. And then we have the darker blue, which are a little stepped away on the other side of Marine Drive. The one on the kind of bottom left being the larger one that's kind of open, the other two with some other potential expansion, like we mentioned, hands-on museum or potentially a lot expansion there. And then up to the top right, the ones in purple, that is some potential development that's currently under contract with the port. So that's part of the Westman Mills site you see there. And then the two other purple spots, developer has plans for future development, but right now it's an open lot.
And I just want to chime in because the Westman Mills story is a good one. It is a brownfield redevelopment, infill. So from the standpoint of sustainable development, it's kind of as good as you get. And that front building is also been designed to a LEED Silver standard. So it's a sustainable building on a remediated site, which from the standpoint of sustainability is sort of an exciting story. And I know that TAS was part of that team as well.
Great. Thank you for that, Rachel.
So with that, we're going to open this up to feedback, to comments, to questions. So community, the floor is yours.
I'd like to add, we also have a chat function. So if you want to type in some comments, feel free and we'll be able to respond to those directly as well.
Thank you, Amos.
Well, this is Stacy Waterman Hoy. I was gonna let others chime in, but here is nobody. There was a big gap, and I always am awkward with big gaps, so I had to jump in. Well, I'm in my. Oops. Well, okay. I won't mess around with the camera. So I was the founder and the executive director of the Arbutus Folk School for the last 8 years. I just stepped down in October, and so it's my framework for thinking about an art center of some kind. And I'm still like very connected and enthusiastic about Arbutus. I'm just trying to let it grow. I have some separation from that. Anyway, Arbutus is a folk craft school in downtown Olympia. We have a wood shop, a ceramic studio, fiber art studio. We do blacksmithing, stone carving, letterpress, paper making, and we have interest in expanding into more metalwork and glass blowing and any other craft that we can develop into over time. We don't have facilities for those things right now. We're really limited by the facility that we currently have. And I guess I have to start saying they, but anyway, I still say we. I'm still transitioning. We're just a small, young, organization. We're still building, still getting our feet under us. And one of the things that's really hampered our growth is that we're currently paying market-based rent in downtown Olympia in the downtown core. We're directly across the street from City Hall on 4th Avenue between Olympia Coffee Roaster and Olympia Family Theater. I've come to realize that a nonprofit arts organization is never going to be what it should be if it's got to pay full market-based rents all the time. So we can pay a lot of rent, but if we had a public facility that we could operate from, our building is really inadequate for what we're trying to do. We just moved into a commercial space that we could get started in, and we need to grow. We're desperate to grow. We have a facility plan for over 20,000 square feet of shop space and art space needs. And so I'll wrap it up here a little bit, but I just want to say we have an artist in residence program. We foster a lot of small artists starting up their individual businesses. We have been an attraction. People have located to Olympia because of our craft school. We have had people drive from Pennsylvania to Olympia, Washington in their RV to take classes with us. We have people coming from all around the world. We barely, I mean, we're just, really trying to keep up with the demand for what we're doing. We're still operating right now. We're one of the only arts organizations that I know of. We have groups of 5 coming at a time in our building. So we're barely making it through, but I think we're going to make it through. But I think it's out of the box thinking to think about having something like this for Olympia. I think it really reflects Olympia's character to have such a unique thing. I mean, I think, hotels and RV parks are, everybody needs them. They're like the standard operating economic development activity. And Olympia is short of some of those things. But a craft center like what we are doing, it would really stand out. It serves all ages of the public, youth programs to elder programs and everything in between. We have family groups that come in. It's something all ages can do. I mean, I can go on and on about Arbutus, but I'm going to just stop there. I just wanted to make sure that you guys knew that we existed and that we're looking to expand. And I don't really have my, like sight set on any particular thing out there, but there it is. I'll stop. Thank you for doing this. It's very informative.
Thank you for being here. And I want to assure you that I definitely know that Arbutus exists. It's a great asset.
And I know you do. I know.
But it is truly an asset and duly noted. And I've offered to other folks that, I'm happy to personally help if there's a group of nonprofits that want to get together and come up with a proposal. So I just want to assure you that your comments have been duly noted, and we remain available if you have any other kind of specifics to the needs that you have. So thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Of course.
So can I just jump in next? My name's Dave Bonato, and I'm the president of a pretty newly formed organization called the Supporters of Olympia Community Sailing. And first of all, thank you for having this little public input. Rachel, yes, I still run. We are good. But in the comments, I think a couple of folks have sort of put forward the idea of a community sailing center. And I like the ideas of making the waterfront a place to go to. And community sailing centers, I think, do that for people, whether or not it's sailing competitions, recreational sailing. The idea of a hotel and an RV park could complement a sailing center, so that's space for people to potentially have educational programs to learn how to sail, adult sailing education programs, recreational sailing or whatever. So I think there's opportunities for Olympia in this area. There's definitely sailing centers that we could sort of model after in Seattle or up in Port Townsend or nationally. And so I think there's just something that hopefully we can work together to explore the feasibility of this. Certainly we could partner with other nonprofits who would want space. So just keep us in mind.
Dave, definitely in mind. And for the benefit of the project team, if you have, it sounds like you have a list of examples of what you're kind of envisioning. If you could email those, that would be wonderful. And that gives us a vision for kind of what you're thinking as far as what a sailing center might entail and what it would include. So thank you.
Great. Absolutely. Would love to do that. And, I see in the comments, one of big advocate for sailing centers, talking a lot about the idea of, bringing lots of people to the waterfront for sort of regattas, which are youth regattas. You see all those little sailboats out there. Those are our sailing teams from middle school to high school. But there's also robust adult sailing competitions or recreational programs. So we just need to bring all those folks together. So we will definitely look for examples.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dave.
Hi, this is Bob Jacobs. Can you hear me?
We can, Bob. Welcome.
Thank you. I would like to add my 2 cents here. First of all, I'm speaking for myself, not for any other organization. As you went through your presentation, Rachel, I made some notes real quickly. I have 4 interests things that I've noted as interests and 3 as concerns. On interests, I think the waterfront trail is extremely important. It should be maintained, possibly improved. The standard, I believe, for the city of Olympia is 10 feet wide for trails of this magnitude. And I think it should be at least that wide. That gets a lot of use. Second interest, public water access. People really want to get to the water, near the water. That's important, and I've noticed a couple of spots that you have designated potentially for that. Third, natural areas, not just by the water, but back to. People like natural areas. Finally, the raised parking lot at North Point. Many of us have recognized that as probably the best public park location in the whole of Thurston County. It's got a magnificent view to the north, and you go down there just about any day of the year, you'll see people sitting in their cars enjoying the view and walking around, eating lunch. That's our favorite place to go and have our McConey's burgers, what I call. On the concern side, the first one is pollution. This area what is mostly from the most recent fill, which scooped up a lot of polluted sediments from out near North Point from the old coal operation. So pollution will be a concern, will need to be dealt with. Second, you mentioned sea level rise. That's important, and I would hope that whatever structures are used will combine natural features. Concrete, not such a great idea. But sea level rise also has concerns with how the water gets in. It's not just over the top, it's underneath. This is very porous soil. And as the sea level gets up, the berms or whatever on the top of the land become insufficient. And there's some areas of the country and the world where this is already happening. Finally, the financial concerns. I'd like to see this whole operation somehow be done in a way that produces a net profit. The port has a lot of red ink on its books, has for years, and it would be nice to see things at least break even and preferably be in the black. That's my input, and thank you for having the public at this. I look forward to future meetings.
Thank you, Bob. I am going to get to all of the comments. I see them coming in, but I want to give folks a chance who want to speak, and then I'll kind of go through the comments so they make it onto the record as well. The floor is open, friends. All right, well, I will just start going down the comments. Just so that, and if folks have ideas or thoughts about something that's written, by all means, chime in. What about a public restroom along the Billy Frank Jr. Trail? That's a great idea. Duly noted. Nikki McClure, we would like to see a sailing center, which Dave spoke to, I believe. And then perhaps you could offer a bit more insight into a place for light industry that once existed there not too long ago. So it's currently zoned by the city as urban waterfront. Maybe, Nikki, if you're on, can you maybe talk a bit more about that vision?
Hi there. Well,
Hi.
I just remember that there were all those warehouses, and that sort of space is really missing for people who want to start a small business. Like I think of Windfall Lumber started there, and you know, some of the comments too were about boat building, and that would be amazing. Like just looking at how Port Townsend has, I mean, they have so many amazing artists and craftspeople, but that sense of boat repair and boat making could be possible. Or like one of my businesses that I'm a part of, they had to leave Olympia because there wasn't small warehouse space in the downtown area. So they went to Portland, Oregon. So, you know, just like those kind of spaces of people who are making things, having them have opportunity for some light industrial, not anything, you know, like how there's, you know, just that mix. And then, you know, it's also just looking at it like that spot, and maybe Bob, you mentioned this about the hotel being right there in that primo spot. I mean, that's the place to go in Olympia and sit and look out into the world, and to give it to a bunch of people who are just visiting our town, I think is stealing it from ourselves. And so that, and I also really, the port property is important habitat that has dwindled. I mean, like, it's just like, you know, 1% of what was once, and that so many bird species are utterly dependent upon a stop in the port for a night. And so maintaining that integrity and enriching it as much as possible is really, really important. You know, just last night, there was probably like 30 mergansers in that little pond, the stormwater pond that the port cleaned out just last year. And now the cattail is not daunted at all, and it has grown back, and the birds are back. And there was, you know, probably like 10 different species of ducks just in that one little pond. So just keep those in mind. It's not just us people, it's other creatures that call the port home.
Certainly. Thank you, Nikki.
Oh, wait, one more thing too about sailing.
Yeah.
Sailing is really important too. It's not just, you know, like, oh, let's all go recreate. And even in this photo that you have up right now, you can see the sailboats, and that's the lessons that the Olympia Yacht Club in the city of Olympia do for kids. So kids as young as 5 are learning how to sail in their city. And it's an amazing, incredible experience that they get to be out in the water. And I think it's really connects people to place in a different way. And it brings them a connection to this wilderness, which is the water. So it's not just sailing, it's about a connection to place and environment.
That's great.
With me.
I'm JT Scott, and I just wanted to put in my 2 cents as well. As far as the light industry goes, you know, for our town, like what Nikki said, we have friends who've had small businesses and run small businesses in town and tried to get going. And the hardest thing for people who are craftspeople to find in this town is affordable space. And I think that that's something that the port, you know, has provided in the past with, you know, some of the warehouses that were torn down for the Hands-on Children's Museum and stuff like that. And so I'd like to see that. I mean, in this log yard.
I know, look at the log yard.
The picture I'm looking at on our screen is of this giant log yard, which is like, to me, it looks like a third world country. I mean, here we are like exporting raw.
For one business, really, for Weyerhaeuser.
For Weyerhaeuser, we're exporting raw logs for what? You know, like there could be people actually like making things for our community in this space. And so that's my 2 cents. I just wanted to throw that out there. Thanks.
All right, thanks everyone for
the feedback is helpful, really. And I'm wondering, I just have one more clarifying question. When you talk like industrial partnership with Arbutus, does that seem compatible?
That sounds like that, to me, that's educational, and I'm all for that as well. I mean, I think that, you know, a place for a craft education is crucial. You know, I mean, it helps people find, you know, meaning in their lives, and a craft is really important to that. And you know, but one thing I was thinking about too with the hotel and some of the other development that the port's done that's mixed residential. I see that as in conflict with each other. I mean, all I hear are people complaining about noise, you know, like the senior housing or the, you know, the elderly housing that's close by, Ziegler's, you know, like they're constantly getting, you know, Ziegler's has been there forever and is a really important resource to the community as far as I'm concerned, you know. And, you know, they're having to move out to Mottman because, you know, of a lot of reasons. But I mean, I think they're going to keep their downtown place, but the idea of a hotel and I would rather see the port focus on, you know, light industry and stuff, and facilities for production instead of
Yeah.
housing.
And generating opportunity, generating opportunity for the people of this town or the people who contribute to the port, not just, other people.
Thanks.
Thank you both. I'm going to keep going down the list unless someone else wants to chime in who hasn't spoken in the chat box.
I'd like to say something.
Yes.
This is Debbie Patton. I've been reading in the chat. One comment was about the RV park, and I did speak about that a year or two ago when that proposal came up. And I spoke in favor of it at the time, and I still am in favor of it because it's something that working class people that maybe don't have the money to go stay at a boutique hotel can avail themselves to. I mean, I grew up in a working class family. My dad worked at a lumber mill, and we had a little, we had a pickup truck with a camper, and then later we had a little small, like a teardrop trailer that we pulled, and we camped. And I think it would be cool to have a little RV park down on the water so that working class people, or even in the day of COVID when you don't want to stay in a hotel,
Right.
could come here to Olympia and avail themselves within walking distance to downtown and all the other amenities along the port. So I am in favor of that. If we are going to have housing above retail in any of these locations that we've mentioned earlier on, I really would like to see it be owner occupied and not just more apartments, because if people are going to sell their home and downsize, they need to be able to buy into a condo or a co-op housing, because otherwise you just lose all the equity that you built up in the home you lived in for 20, 30, or 40 years. So moving into apartment downtown, I think is just a squandering your equity that you built all those years. So that's the other thing. And then lastly, I didn't mean to argue with Nikki or Scott, but I think we do need to preserve union jobs and the forest industry. Not everybody lives in an urban area. Much of our region depends on logging and forest products. I've had this discussion many times with tree farms. We are one of the biggest producers of logs and lumber in the whole country, and a lot of people's livelihood, like my family, historically depends on this. So we can't overlook that economic reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. And again, if my lack of comments aren't lack of interest, it's just wanting to give room to others to speak and take it in. Does anybody else who is on the phone have anything they'd like to add with their voice instead of their chat function? Well, I will keep reading then. I'd prefer bioengineered shorelines rather than hard armoring. Duly noted as an aquatic ecologist, and I'm glad that the idea of a dog park is gone, given the dissolved oxygen problems in Bud Inlet. So those comments are noted. Someone just turned on their camera. Is this because you want to speak?
Well, that was my comment that you mentioned. Not right now. I just kind of wanted to be a face instead of just a voice.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks for being here.
Sure.
How far along is the planning for the RV park? We have some conceptual designs that have been drawn up. We're working with the city currently on shoreline and kind of getting our head around some of the permits. We don't want to rush to the start line there until we are having these conversations. So we do have some conceptual drawings though, and if it's of interest to the group, we can show those at one of the future present public meetings. So I will hope that that is getting taken in the notes. How about a water maritime oriented makerspace type facility? Doug, that was from Doug Ma. That's very consistent with what Dave Bonato said and what I heard from Nikki with regard to kind of light industrial that allows for maritime construction. Is that what you were getting at, Doug?
Yeah, again, this is something consistent with the lazy makerspace, an area where people can try new things. And again, some of the maritime type activities, I don't know if there's places where people can learn to work with, say, other materials like fiberglass or whatever contemporary boat manufacturing uses, in addition to some of the other more mechanical things that go along with recreational boating, or for that matter, industrial or commercial level boating.
Okay, cool. So we're hearing that from a few folks. Sailing Center, second to community sailing center, a facility for small boats and paddle sports with rentals and access to water for community members, either through their own small boat launch or rentals. So another vote of support for a sailing center. I'm looking forward to seeing some of those examples. I hope those get emailed to me soon. I unfortunately don't know how to sail, but there's a lot of energy here and it's exciting to see this.
Hi. Oh, sorry.
No, good. Hi.
I'm a second Nikki.
Nikki.
That was my comment, just this one about access through rentals and stuff. I'm a recent college graduate, and as many young people experience, I don't have enough money to buy a kayak or anything. And so it's great. You pointed out 5 or 6 different water access points for the community already in place in Olympia. But what a community sailing center would provide is an opportunity for me to actually get on the water. I can walk by the water anywhere I want in Olympia, but if I actually want to get on the water, I have to own something, which there are a lot of people in Olympia who don't have that opportunity or access. So this would just actually provide access to the water for a section of the community that is not being like catered to or isn't actually being, yeah, I think you got the point, sorry.
No, don't be sorry, it's great. Thank you for being here and thanks for your contribution. That's really good feedback and it's duly noted. So thank you. Don't ever apologize for participating in your town.
Yeah.
Nikki McClure, we talked to you already. So Drew, another small boat center for sailing and other non-motorized crafts would be very popular for all ages. Awesome. Doug Ma also continue the Wet Center hands-on children's museum theme with water education centers for families and perhaps professional development opportunities. Do you want to build on that at all?
So with 3 institutions of higher education and all the school districts, it would seem appropriate to have some sort of facility down there that is environmental, water oriented. And also, again, the overall theme, you know, the Children's Museum was kind of geared toward younger kids. The Wet Center is a little bit older. We don't really have something for adults. Recognizing that aquariums really probably wouldn't work or are no longer desirable facilities. I do think there's some opportunity for partnering with the college and the university to create a destination point for professional development, either ongoing education for the folks working in that area here, again, additional classroom type laboratory space. It just would kind of fit with kind of the combination of the Children's Museum and of course the industrial laboratory type work that that lot does next door.
Right, cool. Thank you, Doug. And as you're saying that, I'm also thinking there might be ties to some of the maritime heritage designation that we recently received that Chuck Fowler has. So there's some, you know, history connection there as well. So environmental science and history. Thank you. So Sarah, coach Coach Sarah, yes, a community sailing center. A sailing center isn't just a portal to the water like a dock or park. It's a community access point where lessons, rentals, recreation, and engagement with the water can take place. Youth regattas draw hundreds of parents and sailors for multiple days that need to eat, sleep, etc. We are hearing this loud and clear, and I may be reaching out to some folks to dig a little deeper into this with regard to details. So I'm trusting that your comments are also your volunteering for me to reach back out at some point and ask for some additional help in thinking about this. Sarah, are you on? Do you want to add anything else?
I am here. I'm not gonna beat a dead horse because so many people have said many wonderful things about the concept of a sailing center. I would just like to reiterate that it is a access point for all individuals. Sailing can be a great platform for people who have physical disabilities to access the water. And there's so many great examples of socioeconomic differences that can access the water through sailing centers that provide small dinghy lessons and after school group interactions. Like it's more than just for sailors or people who already sail. It's a place that, like Nikki and others were saying, we can bring new people to the water, not just walk along the water's edge, but engage with it. And I heard someone make a comment about more adult opportunities. There's a really strong adult sailing dinghy fleet already. We have a lot of high school sailors in our program that are going to become adults, but are not going to want to buy or be able to purchase big boats, which I think is kind of the trend for boater ownership. So I think there's a really big opportunity for marketing there and having a space that bridges the ages and gets everyone on the water.
Awesome, thank you. And I will, like I say, be reaching out likely to others. Lucy said, I too support a sailing center and a place to rent small boats for people to get out on the water. Stacy Waterman Hoy added, forgot to add, we have been teaching wooden boat building and are very interested in collaborating with the Maritime Heritage Group. Yay. Collaboration is great. We'd like to do a at-risk youth boat building. Very cool. We have relationships with the Squaxin and Nisqually tribes and have sought out space for family groups to carve canoes for the canoe journey. And as folks know, the port has been pretty central to the 2 canoe journeys that have come through here. Another source of great pride for our organization. So that connective tissue, Stacy, is duly noted. Commissioner Zita welcomes email comments. Doug Ma, if there's an opportunity for port office building, it would be beneficial if it included community meeting space and perhaps mixed use opportunities. So that's been on our discussion. We have talked about that. I want to also be mindful of time. This is really exciting to me. So I could be here till midnight listening to these comments. We have 2 minutes. I am happy to stay on later if folks would like. But I do want to be mindful that we are hitting kind of toward the end of our hour together. If you want to connect and weren't able to speak, or I didn't get to your comment before you had to leave, and I'll just keep going through the comments, so just drop off as you have to. Please feel free to reach out. We do want to take in as much as we possibly can. Doug Ma, okay, so we read that. Jenny from the port, a comment form will be added to the Destination Waterfront webpage tomorrow. In the meantime, comments can be directed to inquiries at Port Olympia. So that was perfectly timed, Jenny. Doug says, I have concerns about the compatibility of the RV resort with the rest of the area and whether this is the best long-term use of the property. Doug, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so I haven't looked at the numbers in terms of how this pencils out, but it doesn't strike me as a very dense use of the property, meaning that an RV resort requires a fair amount of space, and it would seem that there are probably more efficient uses of the land in terms of kind of as a return on investment. I see some of the desires in terms of a destination and some of the alternatives as opposed to a boutique hotel. But RV parks or resorts seem to be rather land intensive, but not very dense, and also density in the sense that you cannot go above one RV. So it just strikes me as something that's not quite as dense as, say, a marina where boats are packed in really tight, very efficient use of the space. The entire nature of an RV resort would seem to require a fair amount of open space. And my question is whether or not that, one, is the best use of the property, and two, whether that type of amenity is actually compatible with the other more dense proposals around mixed use, even some of the light industrial ideas being put forth here this evening.
Thank you, Doug. Duly noted. We've heard that before. I will say that the original intent was and I'm just giving some background, so not an opinion, just background. The original intent was for this to be a bridge development, essentially something to carry us through to that denser development. If that denser development is ready and it's ready to go now, and it's got the same ROI that we're looking at with the RV resort, then, you know, the doors are open. No possibility is off the table here. So these, like I said at the beginning, are ideas. I'm always happy when someone comes in with a better one than the one that we have, right? Or that I have. So Stacy says, also festival, concert, and dance community needs a venue. Yes to Nikki and JT. Arbutus is a gateway or incubator for craft businesses. And Markin arrived late, but as soon as I could. Thank you for being here, Anne. At the risk of repeating previous comments, I want to speak up in favor of undeveloped and restored wild spaces that put other animals and plants ahead of humans. The less impervious surface and carbon intensive activity, the better. So please, no RV park. So there's another RV comment, as well as some restoration comments. And that gets back to some of what we've already kind of discussed at the level of living shorelines. Anne, are you on? Do you want to speak any more to that?
Hi. No, since I gather that there's been discussion, I'll listen and take it in.
Awesome.
Thanks.
You're welcome to speak whenever you'd like. So just dive in, as is everybody. Port Townsend Maritime Center has a maritime high school. I want to take a moment to brag on the port a little bit. The person that started the Port Townsend Maritime Center is actually a port employee now. So as far as a wealth of knowledge on exactly that, we have it on our team. So as we continue to hear that, I will be reaching to Alicia, I think you're on the call for that expertise. Arbutus Folk School is an all ages venue. Yes. Zita is giving me a nice comment. Thank you, Commissioner. Question, would a sailing center include rowing and kayaking, paddle boards, etc.? That's from John Owen. That is open to us. Ultimately, what a sailing center includes is going to be hopefully the best thinking of the community in collaboration with the developers that hopefully come and think this is also as exciting as I'm thinking it is. But I'm hearing from multiple folks that we want rowing, kayaking, paddleboards, some in-water opportunities as part of that sailing center. Stacy, thank you for coming. We need to be, Deb Patton, we need to be mindful of union family wage jobs, as you spoke to. And for the forest product industry that is vital to surrounding communities, the port is not just for residents of downtown Olympia, but for the entire county. Economic development, not just gentrification of a working waterfront. Some of the connective tissue I'm hearing is actually kind of cool. The idea of light industrial kind of next to the terminal. It really does actually speak to that heritage of creative industry in the state. And I think, you know, so Deb, duly noted. Are we at a point where we can, oh, things are coming in fast. Are we at a point where we can sustain a large farmer's market? Doug, do you want to speak to that?
I think the missing word there was, are we at a point where we can sustain a second large farmer's market? So an East market and a West market.
Oh, wow. Okay. So are you thinking that that would be both downtown?
Both downtown, east and
Okay.
west.
Awesome, duly noted. And the port, I think as many know, but I will toot the organization's horn. This commission in particular has invested pretty heavily in developing ag projects in Thurston County over the last number of years. So it is a goal that all three commissioners that are on the commission now have identified as primary and have put their money where their mouth is. And we are part of quite a number of ag projects that should be pretty transformational, both in rural and urban parts of the county. So Second Farmers Market is duly noted.
This is Bob again.
Hi.
Hi. I didn't catch a response on the idea of a public restroom along the Billy Frank Jr. Trail.
Yeah, I said it was a great idea and it was noted.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
because
can't make any promises. The commission
Yeah.
ultimately is responsible for the budget, which is what will bring all of this forward, but they're hearing all of this. And so this is a great way for them to get that feedback.
Yeah, because I mean, I know there's a lot of boat people restroom along there, but I'm always reminded that it's not equal access. And especially if you're trying to bring kids along the trail, it's not real practical right now.
I'm a runner. I would personally, putting my work hat off, I'd love to have a bathroom down there too. So we'll see what the commission says, but it was noted. So
Okay.
thank you for that comment. Yeah.
Right. Thanks.
Can someone post a link to the PDF that seems to have been shared earlier? Yes. So Anne, all of this, if you go to portolympia.com and search for Destination Waterfront, all of this, and as Jenny said, intake form will be available as of tomorrow. So I can't promise that this presentation is up now, but there is a web page up now with the calendar of events that we went through earlier so that everybody knows when. Oh, and Jenny just said there is a link on the right sidebar of the port's homepage. She works faster than I can keep up with. So apparently, there we go. Homepage, you can get to the Destination Waterfront and all of the information will be there, as well as details on upcoming meetings. This is the first. We're going to take this information that you've shared with us back, and then we're going to come back to you 2 more times, as I mentioned at the beginning. We really want this to be an iterative process. That we're hearing you, we're bringing back ideas, we're hearing you again, we're bringing back ideas. Some things may not be possible, and we'll be really honest with you, and that's the case. And where things are possible, then that's where we can really kind of refine the vision for this area. So I'm to the end, I believe, of comments. Okay, I mentioned the public forums again. Anybody else have anything else they'd like to add? I know that speaking up in a public meeting with strangers online is a challenge, so I really do encourage you to think about this. As someone who cares personally a lot about this community, this project is very exciting to me. This is our opportunity to make the waterfront our dream. So if you're thinking about this, even if it's incomplete sentences that you're emailing me because you just want to get some thoughts down, I encourage and ask that you please do that. We want to hear from you. And with that, if I don't have any other comments, I want to thank everybody for investing a bit over an hour of your time to the Port of Olympia tonight. And sincerely hope that you will stay engaged through this process and that we can work together to make some of these visions come to be. Thanks, folks.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.